You're listening to the Option Alpha podcast from OptionAlpha.com, where we show you how to make smarter trades, learn how the stock market really works, and generate consistent monthly income. Now, your host and head trader at OptionAlpha.com, Kirk Duplessis.
Hey everyone, this is Kirk Duplessis here again at OptionAlpha.com, and welcome to the first ever Option Alpha podcast, where we show you guys how to make smarter trades. You know, podcasting has been something I've been wanting to do for about a year now and just really haven't taken the steps to do it. And finally, my wife was kind enough to really kick me in the butt and get me podcasting here. And we've been setting up all these shows and everything that we have coming out for you guys over the last couple weeks, and finally ready to launch everything coming up very, very soon. So a lot of new shows are going to be coming out, but what I wanted to do on this first podcast, kind of our initial run here, is talk a little bit about my background, who I am, my trading background. If you're not familiar with us at OptionAlpha.com, this will help you get a little bit of familiarity with what we do and how we do it over there. And then also just kind of lay the groundwork here for what we're going to be doing in this podcast going into the future. I know that this is going to be an incredible opportunity to connect with people like you that are driving in your car or working out or just listening to it on your phone at home. This is a great opportunity and another great medium for us to talk about what we like to do, and that's trade options and invest in the stock market. So before we get into all of that, let me just kind of run through a little bit of background on who I am and where I'm from and what I do. So again, my name is Kirk. I'm actually born and raised in Denver, Colorado. I was actually born in Colorado Springs, but we lived about a fair amount of our early life in Colorado Springs and Denver. I've got a lot of family back out there. I'm a huge Denver Broncos fan. Unfortunately, we didn't do so well in the Super Bowl last year, but hey, there's always next year, right? And my family then moved out to the East Coast when I was in school. So when I was in school, we moved out to the East Coast. My mom and dad have been in the mortgage industry for a very, very long time. And we've lived in Virginia for pretty much my entire life. So even though I was born and raised in Colorado, I basically consider Virginia to be my home. And just recently, as of this recording, about 3 weeks ago, me and my wife moved from Virginia with our daughter, and we actually moved back to her home state of Pennsylvania because she got a great job opportunity up there. And obviously my trading and the website allowed me to make that transition very, very easily for her, so that she could take on that job opportunity and kind of pursue her dreams as well. So right now we're kind of living in Pennsylvania. We don't exactly have a house yet. We're living with family while our new house is under contract. So at the time of this recording, I'm kind of in limbo land, but definitely going to be in Pennsylvania for the foreseeable future. I went to school at University of Virginia. That's where I actually graduated from with a degree in finance. For a little while, I worked on Wall Street for Deutsche Bank. I was in mergers and acquisitions, also did a rotation on their trading desk. So I've got a lot of in-depth knowledge about how that side of the business works, and it was a great experience for me, just not exactly what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I can say that I met a lot of people up there, still got a lot of great relationships with people that I went into that position with and left that position with. So it was a great experience, but really just didn't really fit with what I wanted to do long term. I didn't like the hours. There's no real family life, and I know you sacrifice that a little bit for the success of doing that, but for me, it's just not something that I wanted to do at that point. So after I left New York, I actually came back to Virginia and worked for BB&T in their capital markets division. It's a small regional bank, and I was actually doing REIT research. So I was an analyst with the other team of analysts that were covering REITs. So we would cover real estate investment trusts like triple net and apartment REITs and industrial and office building and specialty REITs. So we would cover them and publish reports on what they were doing and where our kind of price projections were. So I've got the side of my business that was, or the side of my background that was in New York, mergers and acquisitions, kind of one side of the wall up there, kind of the private side. And then I've got this other side that I was in with the REIT and being an analyst for them, doing reports and publishing reports and doing in-depth research on companies, talking and going to meet with the CEOs and the CFOs. And again, gave me a lot of experience in how different sides of the business work. At the end of the day, I figured out, though, that I really didn't want to do that either, right? So I was there for a little bit, had published some reports, had gone and met with CEOs, had been back and forth to New York, had a real good understanding of the industry, but what I came to find out was that actually, more often than not, a lot of these reports are, again, forward-looking and just a lot of projections. So there's a lot of things that go into some of these reports Not to say that they're necessarily bad or good or whatever the case is, but there's a lot of things that you kind of estimate to then get a price target of a stock. So what is sales going to grow at in the future? What is earning or expenses going to grow out in the future? What kind of major capital expenditures are coming up in the future? And all of these things go into a formula that then spits out a number and says, okay, the stock is worth X. And I just didn't really agree with the fact that, you know what, maybe there's a better way to do it, right? Maybe we can use some sort of probability analysis and volatility. Maybe there's something else out there that's better than just some assumptions and projections, because anybody can make really good projections, right? I can make great projections that sales is going to grow and expenses are going to decrease, but we don't really know what's going to happen, right? And at the end of the day, I didn't think that that's, again, exactly where I wanted to be. So after all that said and done, I actually came home and started trading for a living. So I started trading for a living. Many of you know that when I came home and first started trading, I lost a couple $1,000s in the first week. And my wife kind of looked at me and said, hey, look, if this is what you think that trading is going to be, then you've got to reprioritize what you're doing here. And the reason is because I had moved from a progression of being really, really active in the markets and assuming that activity and knowledge of following the markets could transition very smoothly into doing day trading. And I was actually fairly successful after the first week. I, make a couple $100, you lose a couple $100. I had a couple days where I was making $1,000 a day, but then I would lose, some money right after that. And that eventually led me into doing options trading, which I got introduced to in New York doing a rotation on the trading desk. So I got introduced to the way that an institution does options and how they look at it. And then also, again, refound that love for options trading again when I was at home, trying to find a more consistent way to make money, right? I like the idea of day trading. I think we all can really love the idea of day trading, right? You're sitting there, you're typing, sell, buy, sell, and you're just trying to get all these profits racked in really quickly. But the real longevity of day trading is very, very hard to sustain, meaning that you can't really sustain a lot of profitable trades in a row. It takes just an enormous amount of work and speed and accuracy to do that on a consistent basis. And that's, again, not where I wanted to be with my life. So I've got a wife, I've got a kid now. I want something that's going to be a little bit more stable. I'm still very, very active, as everyone knows on Option Alpha. I'm very, very active in the markets because I love it, but I don't necessarily need to be day trading. So I don't need to go into the market and make 10 trades every day so that I make a living. There's trades that work for me. So that's how I kind of got into options trading, and I've grown that ever since. Now, how I actually started with Option Alpha is actually a pretty crazy story. But when I was back at home and day trading, I was still talking to a couple guys that I had known from college and met through work. And I was telling them that I was day trading. They said, hey, Kirk, why don't you start a blog on Google and start to share some of your ideas? So I did. I started a blog on Google, and I won't even tell you the crazy name that I had because it had like Z's in it and stuff like that. It was about bulls and bears, and it was really horrible name. I'm so glad that I changed it eventually to Option Alpha. But I would post those trades to the blog, and people would follow along. And then people also commented and emailed me and said, Kirk, well, why don't you just, send out these alerts and, I'll pay you some sort of monthly fee to do that. And so really that's how everything really began. And that was almost 8 years ago now that we started that original blog on Google that is now transformed into this massive education platform that is Option Alpha. And so for me, what originally started out as a good way to just share what I was doing became really a mission for me to help other people learn how to trade options. And I say that it's a mission because I'm really, really involved in this. I'm actually very angry at the whole entire industry about the lack of financial literacy out there. I think that so many people get frustrated and overwhelmed by this idea that they don't know this huge concept that's options trading or probability trading or anything relating to the stock market. It's so above their head. And all these industry experts out there make it seem like it's some grandiose thing that you need a college degree and a master's degree to actually understand. So my goal and my mission is to help break down all those barriers so that you guys understand that it's not as complicated as it seems, that it's actually a lot easier and much safer once you understand some of the building blocks. And that's going to be one of my major missions with this podcast, is to really break down a lot of these barriers and really kind of dispel a lot of these myths and concepts that are out there surrounding trading. Okay, so that's one of the big things that I'm going to be doing. The other thing that I want to do is as part of this podcast is make sure that we get a lot of unanswered and new questions out there. One of the things that has been really, really good for me personally with starting Option Alpha and continuing to run this website on a day-to-day basis is that I have learned so much from my members. Option Alpha currently has about 18,000 newsletter subscribers, well over 1,000 members. It's very, very big. We've got a robust coaching program where I coach people from all over the world. I've probably coached a couple hundred people from all over the world, from the UK and Africa and India and China and Indonesia and Australia and Russia. I've coached people from all over the world. But I've learned so much from those members and my coaching students that it has allowed me to then take my trading to the next level. So one of the things I want to do with this podcast, if you subscribe in iTunes or SoundCloud or whatever the case is we're going to be answering pretty much every week a lot of unanswered and new questions out there about options trading. And it's a never-ending cycle. There's always something that we can talk about. So I highly suggest take the time now to subscribe in iTunes so you get the most recent podcasts whenever they come available. Now, I also think that this podcast is going to be a better way to connect with some of you. Like I mentioned earlier, I think one of the great things about podcasting and one of the reasons that I wanted to start it so long ago, and I don't know why I just hesitated so long to start it, is that this offers a different type of medium to connect with you guys and to share some of the great content that's out there with options trading. So we've got a huge YouTube following online. We've got almost 1 million views on our YouTube channel. We've got a robust Facebook page and a robust blog with almost 1,600 blog posts over the last 8 years. But all of that stuff really doesn't compare to just this one-on-one talking that we're doing right here. So this kind of audio exchange. And we're going to have people coming in and doing interviews, and we're going to be interviewing other traders that are out there, other website owners, possibly even somebody like you that's been doing trading for a while and help share your story. So this is a new medium to help engage with you and to help teach you that's different from doing a video tutorial or just a blog post. So I'm really excited about that. And then you also get to see a little bit of my personality, which some of you might like, some of you might not like, but it doesn't really matter either way. Now, again, we're going to be partnering up with some other traders out there, some website owners, and other students that I've actually coached before that have already allowed me to get them on this program. So we're already starting to record those sessions. We're going to be starting to roll out those sessions in the coming weeks and months, and we'll be getting more and more frequent with our podcast in the future as we start adding these. So it's going to be a lot of in-depth analysis and talking about options trading. We're going to cover everything from the basics to the advanced, from trade entry to trade adjustment. There will be no stone unturned with this podcast. Okay. And then just to kind of wrap things up here a little bit, I would just want to talk about the general structure of the podcast, just so you guys know what to expect going forward. So as always, it's going to be a structure of me doing a lot of audio or monologue interviews, case studies, a lot of trade examples. We will always try to go over some sort of relevant market data at the time of the recording of the podcast, because I do want it to be a little bit market specific for that time, but I don't want this podcast to be just a talking head show of the stocks are up and stocks are down and bonds are up or whatever the case is. That doesn't really get to the meat of why we're doing this podcast, right? You can go find out where stocks are going and get somebody's opinion on the market. And I'll just cover that briefly at the end of every podcast, but I don't want that to be the focus. I want education, learning, understanding, building concepts. That needs to be the focus of what this podcast is. I want to hear from you guys. So I want to know, as we go through and publish more of these, please add a comment on the show notes or leave us a review in iTunes. Let me know what you don't like, what you do like, what you want to hear in the future. Because as I've done for the last 8 years with the membership side of our website, is I've built that membership side specifically tailored to what people need help on. So if somebody needs help on, for example, trade adjustments, we'll go in there and we'll add a video tutorial and a webinar about trade adjustments. And if somebody needs help on, say, butterflies or calendar spreads, we're going to go in there and we're going to add help on butterflies or calendar spreads. So I encourage you to go to our podcast page at optionalpha.com/podcast. Make sure that you go to that page and you enter in some comments there. Let us know, or leave us a review on iTunes just to let us know what other topics you guys want. As far as the frequency goes, we're going to be doing these almost every week as we start to get into the future, as we get more and more of these podcasts published and more of these recorded. They'll be doing them a little bit more frequently, but we're going to try to do them every week around Tuesday. So we'll send out the email update to our newsletter. Make sure you're on our newsletter to get updates on the new podcast. And then for every single podcast, we're going to be posting show notes right on our blog. So for example, this will be show number 1 for Option Alpha. So if you go to optionalpha.com/show1 and the number 1, just show 1, you'll see all of the show notes for this show and any other future shows, all of the comments, the links, the relevant data, articles, anything that we talk about on the podcast, any videos that we mention, any people that we bring in to interview or website owners or other traders out there. We'll post all their bios, their info, all the links so that you guys have it and don't feel like you have to be writing down a ton of notes and scribbling on your notebook here, even though that'd be cool if you do during this podcast. But you don't have to write down a ton of that. We'll be posting all of those show notes. Again, every show, we'll talk about it during the show, but it'll be show 1 on optionalpha.com or show 2 or show 200, whatever the case is, that will always be posted there. All right, so just coming up, we're going to preview a couple of the podcasts that we have coming up in the next week or so. So after we get this initial podcast done, which I can't believe I'm actually doing, it's been a year in the making, what we want to talk about in future podcasts is start to build these building blocks. So we're going to do a combination of beginner sessions and advanced sessions. But if you're an advanced trader or you think you're an advanced trader out there, I wouldn't shy away from actually missing those beginner sessions because you could miss a lot of relevant information that you might not have gotten the first time that you talked about option deltas or something like that, or the Greeks. So we're going to be doing a couple beginner shows and a couple advanced shows just to get us really kick-started here. And then we're going to start publishing some of the interviews and some of the case studies that we use going into the future so that you guys have those to use and learn from in the future. All right, so that pretty much wraps it up. I hope that this has been really, really helpful just to get an understanding. I know this is a very short podcast. Most of these podcasts we're going to be doing are running about 30 to 35 minutes. Some of them have run upwards of an hour in the future, but I wanted to get this one done so that you guys understand, again, what my goal is with this podcast. I'm really, really excited. I hope this is something you guys enjoy and love. Please let me know. Go to optionalpha.com/podcast. Let us know what you think. Subscribe in iTunes and iCloud so you can get all of these updates in the future. And until then, happy trading.
Thanks for listening to the Option Alpha podcast. If you liked what you heard, please drop by iTunes and leave a rating or comment. Plus, you can get everything: free email updates for future shows, transcripts, video tutorials, case studies, and more. Just visit our website at optionalpha.com.